Hi, I'm Manda McKay. I'm a professional artist and I'm making these videos to give you tips to help enhance your creativity regardless of your level of expertise. For this video, this tip, I want you to ask yourself, as an artist or a hobbyist, what do I want? And what I mean by that is, what kind of art in your creative field, or maybe even a different creative field, but we'll start with whatever your normal creative practice, whatever type of art that is, what art do you wish already existed that you would want to see or hear or read, whatever, that doesn't exist yet? And then I want you to think about, how could you create that and bring it into existence? Now, I realize that depending on what type of art we're talking about, and also whether you're just starting out with a hobby versus whether you've been doing something for a lifetime, that can be a pretty extreme ask to say, okay, make this happen, whatever it is that you wish existed in the world and doesn't, go ahead and create it and make it happen. So yeah, that is a pretty, that's a pretty big ask. But I talk about all the time in this channel how simply coming up with ideas, even if you don't ever use them, even if the ideas aren't even that great, just coming up with ideas is going to help exercise your creativity, and you will get better at coming up with ideas simply by practicing coming up with ideas. So I'll give some examples about what I'm talking about with what is it that you want to see, because I think that there's been a lot of great art has been created because of a person asking themselves exactly that. What do I want to see or read or hear that doesn't already exist, and how can I make that happen? So let's say that you are a filmmaker and there is some film that you wish you could see, you really want to see it, but it doesn't exist. It's some feature-length film and it takes place on a different planet or in outer space or something. So okay, this is a rather extreme example of something where if you really wanted to make a feature film that's on the level of what you would go see in the movie theater, you would probably need a lot of resources, a lot of money, a lot of time, and you would probably need to hire actors and crew members and set designers and a whole bunch of things in addition to actually being able to make this film. So that would be a pretty big ask, if, you know, to say like, okay, let me just make this hour-and-a-half long movie that I really wish I could see. But at the very least, is there a way that you could shoot a film, and maybe it's not going to be the quality that you would hope, you know, maybe the outer space isn't going to look as realistic as you want, but could you at least shoot a scene however well you can, because that's going to move you in the right direction, and maybe you really do want to make this film. The more that you can practice at it, the more likely you're going to be able to get to that point. Maybe, so maybe you're a novelist. For that, you wouldn't have to have a lot of money necessarily, just time to write it. So that might be an easier, if that happens to be the type of art that you work in, that might be easier for you to achieve, because then you just need the skill and the expertise. Although again, if you are just starting out and you've never written anything before, well, give it a shot, you know, do your best. It may not come out like the work of somebody who had spent a lifetime practicing writing, but it would still be fun and fulfilling, and you can enjoy the process even if it doesn't come out exactly how you want it. Now, my husband last year created the album that he felt like he really wanted and needed at the time, and I think he succeeded, but he has been doing this for a lifetime. He has spent decades not just writing but recording albums. And last year he had emergency surgery, and then when he was recovering from it, he was really in a bad way and in a haze a couple months later. And he really wished that he had this particular psychedelic soul album, and it didn't exist. So he created it and he wrote it and recorded it. But this is something, again, that he not only had the skill and the expertise, but at least it was something that didn't require like a whole slew of actors and crew. So that made it a little bit easier to achieve. For me as an artist, I'm predominantly an oil painter, and the art that I tend to work in is something that I felt like I really needed and wanted to see, and it didn't exist. I paint still lifes of natural objects, but they're allegorical still lifes about things like intimate partner violence or child abuse. This is something that I wanted to see, and I couldn't find it anywhere in the art world that would combine natural objects like a seashell and a feather, something like that, and at the same time be about some kind of a social problem or problem with society. This was something that I couldn't find anywhere, so I felt like that's what I had to make. But this has been a driving force for me for now, I think it's been 14 years that I have been working in this type of art. And I feel like I've done a pretty good job succeeding at it. But I will say that first of all, I have a ton of experience as a painter, and I've been painting since I was a toddler, so I have a lot of practice at it, and a lot of practice about thinking of like the creative side of it. What do I want in a painting? And then learning how to execute that. And I also have a ton of formal training. I have a master's degree in medical illustration. So I've had a ton of formal training, and although medical illustrators generally don't use oil paint, there were still a lot of techniques that I learned in that program that I applied to my art. A third thing that I want to see in this art, in addition to it being both nature and some sort of activism, I also want it to be realistic. That's not something that I think that all paintings should strive for, not at all. That just happens to be what I have, since I started as a toddler, what I was trying to achieve with my art. And so because of all my practice and my training and just being at this for decades, I feel like I have been able to succeed at what it is that I wanted that nobody else was doing. So it can really, if you're wind up taking your creative hobby or your art very seriously, this can turn into something that you can explore for years. And maybe you're just in a hobby and maybe you don't necessarily have a lot of skill at it yet, but it still will be fun to try, and you can enjoy the process even if you don't come up with something that makes it to the level that you had hoped for. It still will practice your creativity, and it still would be something fun. I've actually written a couple of screenplays, feature-length screenplays, and this is not something that I have spent a lifetime doing, so I do not have that level of expertise, but I wrote a screenplay years ago for a film noir. For a while I was really into film noir, and I wanted to see a film that had this real twist that you would not see coming. And I wound up writing the screenplay myself. And is it an amazing screenplay? Probably not. I did succeed at least at incorporating the twist that I don't think anybody else has done and that I would want to see in a movie. So who knows, maybe someday this will lead to something, but this is just an example of where I had fun creating the art, even though it probably is not at the level that I would want, simply because I just didn't have the expertise to come up with that. But don't let that stop you. Even if you're just starting out, you still may be able to achieve exactly what it is that you're trying to create. And if not, like I said, it'll be just fun practice, and you can enjoy the process and have fun just coming up with the ideas for what it is that you want and that you wish you could see in your field of art. And so again, just, think about ask yourself, what do I really want to see in the field that I'm working in, my creative practice? And is there a way that I could possibly try to make that happen and bring it into existence myself? And don't worry whether or not you're actually able to achieve it. Just give it a shot and try it. And it may lead to something big and maybe it won't, but you'll have fun at it anyway and it will be good practice. So again, my name is Manda McKay, and I hope you found this video to be useful. Let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.